if you have a social media handle and somebody else owns that name as a trademark, they can take it to Facebook or Meta and put a claim in for trademark infringement, and they can reclaim your social media handle.
Whoa.
Domains, they can do it too. We've had accounts taken down because that very same social media handle was a registered trademark and they were in the same industry. So people don't realize that, but it's very common.
Welcome to the Side Hustler Podcast, the podcast for women building their dreams while balancing work, family, and all the things. I'm your host, Carly LeBlanc, a wife, mom, marketer, and your side hustling friend here to teach you how to grow a brand that works for you and not the other way around. Whether you're a side hustling pro or just starting out, this is your safe place for real talk, actionable strategies, and the encouragement you need to keep going. We're here to help you make progress and not perfection. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's build your dream one step at a time. Hello, and welcome back to the Side Hustler Podcast. I am your host, Carly LeBlanc, and I am so excited to have you here with us today because, man, you are in for a treat. Now, first of all, I'm going to let you know that this is the episode for you to pull out a pen and paper because you're going to have a lot of key takeaways and things for you to work on after you tune into this episode. And I'm going to tell you exactly why, because if you're a side hustler or a new business owner, this episode is going to be so impactful because we're diving into the legal side of entrepreneurship. And so many of us tend to overlook these things, but instead of us waiting until it's too late, I wanted us to sit down and tackle it now. I am so excited for today's guest, Elle, who is a trademark and business attorney who specializes in helping entrepreneurs protect their brands, secure their trademarks, and navigate contracts with confidence. Elle and I actually connected on Instagram, and she has been a pivotal person in my entrepreneurship life because she actually helped me secure my trademark for this podcast. And she made this entire process of securing a trademark super seamless and provided so much valuable insight and was an absolute pleasure to work with. And because she is a true supporter of the Side Hustler podcast, I knew I had to have her on the show to share her expertise with you. Elle has been in the legal industry for 11 years. She started in family law before transitioning to intellectual property and business law. And after taking the New York bar, she actually launched her own law firm in 2022, making her not just an attorney, but also an entrepreneur herself. She understands firsthand the legal struggles business owners face. And today she's going to walk us through how to legally protect our businesses from the jump. In this episode, we're going to be covering the most common legal mistakes new entrepreneurs make and how to avoid them, what every business owner needs to know about trademarks and intellectual property, how to protect your brand and ideas before someone else steals them, and practical legal steps to take before launching your business. So, if you ever thought, I'm just going to come back to the legal stuff later, this episode is going to be just for you. So let's get into today's episode. Before we start today's episode, I'm excited to let you know about something that's going to change the game for you as a side hustler. If you're tired of feeling stuck when it comes to social media, I've got something that will help you finally get the clarity and the confidence you need. Are you a beginner entrepreneur who's just starting out and feeling completely lost on how to use social media to grow your brand? Or maybe you just launched your business, but you have no idea where to start when it comes to posting, engaging, or even attracting the right audience. If that sounds like you, this challenge was made just for you. I'm introducing the Social Media Made Easy 30-Day Challenge for Side Hustlers, which is a free step-by-step challenge designed to help you confidently create content, grow your audience, and market your business online, even if you're balancing a 9-to-5. Each day, you'll get bite-sized action steps that take about 15 to 30 minutes to build momentum and start seeing real results. No more overthinking or feeling overwhelmed, because this challenge is all about making social media simple and effective for your busy life. We start on March 1st, so don't wait. Click the link in the show notes to sign up today. Remember, this challenge is completely free. Let's make social media work for you and not stress you out. I can't wait to see you inside. Hey, Elle, and welcome to the Side Hustler Podcast.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, for all of the people who don't know, Elle actually helped me with obtaining my trademark for my podcast. And when we first met, I found you on Instagram. And
Mhm.
I was so excited because when we met, she had this amazing accent. And I was just, oh my gosh, you're the sweetest. And it was just so peaceful working with you. The whole process was so peaceful. And I think when you think about trademarking and working with an attorney, I feel a lot of people have this thing, it's always going to be so serious, but it was just such like a cool, calm, collected environment. The process was easy. You walked me through it, everything. She had everything already prepared whenever we hopped on the call. So it was great. So I'm so excited to have you here on the Side Hustler
Thank
Podcast.
you. Thank you so much. And I just want to say I really enjoyed the process with you as well. It just felt fun. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's the vibe. It doesn't have to always be scary or serious. But yeah, I really enjoyed the vibe. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to have Elle here on the podcast today because one thing that I realized when first off when starting a business is that there are completely different ways of how you should structure your business entity. When I first got my LLC here in the state, I was basically just registering my business with the state. I wasn't aware what steps I had to take when it came to trademarking and why trademarks are important. What's the difference between a trademark and an LLC? And why do you need a trademark?
Okay, that is a great question. And it's actually a very common question. So you're not alone. There are tons of people who are in the same boat or were in the same boat at least. And basically, a trademark is your business blueprint, like fingerprint. Let's say this is your brand identity. So your trademark, typically, what you can trademark is your name, your slogan, your logo, the things that identify your brand. And then obviously your business also identifies your brand, but that's the actual entity. So you having a business, and yes, you might have secured the name with the state, that doesn't actually give you trademark protection to stop other people from using it. Because what some people don't realize is that when you register a business with the state, as long as it's available in that state, that's great. But somebody else in another state can also register it. So you could have multiple people with the same names in different states, but the one who trademarks it is the one who's going to have protection of the name in their industry as a business. So your business can own the trademark, but you need the trademark to protect your business identity, so to speak.
Yeah, that's really good. And I was thinking also because I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast may have already have like their LLCs already obtained. One thing that I think we set up was that my trademark was owned by my LLC. And that was something that I didn't even know that you can do because basically it's kind of like your business is like a person. Like you have a social
Right.
security number, which is your EIN, but then also like your business can own the trademarks or you can own them yourself. And that was something that I was completely like not even knowing when
Right.
it came to like how trademarks work. So that's really good. I want to talk about the common misconceptions that you see people have when it comes to trademarks and whenever they're starting a business. Like I know for myself, a lot of people think like, okay, if I go and purchase an LLC, that means that I own this business and that
Mhm.
means that, I can do whatever with it, but then also like people can't steal that identity. And I know that you're talking about the difference between the two. So what are some of the most common misconceptions that people have when it comes to trademarks?
That again, another really good question. There are quite a few, but one of the most common ones is I have the LLC name already. They think because it feels very official, right? When you're going to sign up, you're registering your business with the Secretary of State. It does feel very official and it is official, but that doesn't give you the protection for the name that you're using or your brand identity.
Yeah.
So people think that having the LLC gives them the protection. It doesn't. Another one is like I've got the domain name, I've got the social media handles, I've got everything. I've got all the ads, right? So no one can steal the name because I have all the ads. But actually, what people don't know is if you have a social media handle and somebody else owns that name as a trademark, they can actually, and I've done this before for clients, come and they take it to Facebook or Meta, whatever they're called now, and they can put a claim in for trademark infringement, and they can actually reclaim your social media handle.
Whoa.
Domains, they can do it too. Yeah, they can just, and I've done it for people. I've seen it. We've had accounts taken down because that very same social media handle was a registered trademark and they were in the same industry. So people don't realize that, but it's very common for people not to realize that. So
Whoa.
yeah, that's
Yes.
yeah, it's a big one, and it can be a bit sad sometimes. Like you're going after somebody else's brand, but if my client has registered the name and they've taken the steps to do their research and find out, okay, if I want to own this brand, if I want to have this brand identity, I can't just have the social media handle. I need to also have the trademark, and so in some cases they get a chance to respond. In other cases, they just take it down. Same thing with podcasts, Apple or Spotify will take down somebody else's podcast if it's the same name that you have trademarked. You have to show them the trademark certificate. I've done this as well for a client. And recently I had two podcasts there were three with the same name. One person trademarked it, and now one person's podcast remains. So yeah, that's
Wow.
something that people don't think about. And just one more is sometimes people look at themselves and they say, well, I'm just a small business, or I'm just starting. I'm just like, nobody's going to copy my name. And I've had someone say that to me. Well, I'm just small. Nobody knows me. It's a random name, but you'll be surprised how many people are thinking of starting a business. How many people have been sitting on a business idea and then one day they just decide, okay, today I'm going to register it, and it so happens to be the same name or very similar because they don't have to be identical, and then they go and register it and now you can't use it. And so that's another thing people just say. I've heard it a lot, I should say, where it's like, I'm just small, I'm only starting out. It's not a biggie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. No, that's so true. That's so true. Because even myself, like, I mean, when I first got started with my podcast, I was like, oh, it's just something small. I need to see if I'm actually going to stick with it before I go through. But it's like, no, because somebody can literally steal your idea like tomorrow. And
Yeah.
all of the work that you have built with that brand name, that identity is gone. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if somebody would have came in before me and trademark my podcast name, like all of the work that I've put into this podcast like would just be gone. It's definitely worth the investment if you are taking what you do seriously in your work. I mean, we
Mhm.
spend a lot of time creating content online, whether that's through long form, short form. So it's like, if you would definitely want to make sure that your brand is protected, then investing in a trademark is definitely the way to go. I didn't even get you to introduce yourself and like, how did you get started? Like, we just dove right in. So, so I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what gave you the calling? Like, this is exactly the lane and zone of genius that I want to focus on. Like, what made you decide to become a trademark attorney and also an entrepreneur?
I would say one, I think because I am an entrepreneur myself, and I always have been. I've always been into like side hustles. So this is why I love your podcast so much. One problem I have, which is a blessing and a problem at the same time, is I have so many ideas all the time,
Mm,
always. And
yeah,
I'm like, okay, which one should I do now? Or should I start this? And it's just I have all the ideas, but not the capacity, not the time. And sometimes I just need to narrow it down and focus. So
yes,
initially, I started off in family law in the UK, and that's a very contentious area. It's not what I enjoy. So I didn't like having to go to court every day and, people are crying over things. It was just not the environment for me. So I decided, okay, well, let me venture out, let me cross the pond, do the bar exam there. And once I passed the bar, I was at a crossroads of, do I go and work for a firm, or do I do what I know is my calling, which is to be an entrepreneur?
yeah,
And it was a very hard decision. It was easy but hard at the same time because I knew it's what I wanted.
yeah.
But I thought, you know what? No, I'm gonna open my own firm. Let's just give it to God, see what happens. And here I still am today. So I'm very grateful. But because I know how ideas can go so quickly, so many ideas that I had, tons of ideas that I had, they're now like very successful ideas. Even some of them aren't successful, but they exist. And somebody else put it into fruition before I did
Wow.
because I was sitting back. So when I see how quickly things can go, and then knowing I have the knowledge to figure out and tell people, educate people how to protect the things that they are actually creating, then I thought this is the perfect lane for me to be in brand protection. I can still be an entrepreneur. I can help. I have my own mistakes I went through. I have my own, I felt like I relate to it. So it's just the perfect like mesh coming together. So
Yeah, that's so good. No, I definitely agree with you. I have all of these amazing ideas. I'm like, oh, this would be such a great business opportunity. Like, I
yeah.
have a list of in my phone, like, oh, businesses that I would love to start. And I'm like, this is insane. So it's always good to hear that, like, I'm not the only one that's crazy.
Mhm.
Because every time I see something, I'm like, oh, I could do this and make this like 10,000 times better.
Right. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And
I love
just to add to that, with what you said about the ideas and something you said at the beginning, like with this podcast, for example,
it.
like knowing whether you're going to go into it, I would say one thing is when you're going into, having a trademark, to make sure that you are going to commit to the brand, because
Mhm.
there's no point. That's the only time I would advise somebody not to get a trademark or not to go for it, is if they're on the fence, it's just a hobby, they're not really thinking of pursuing it. At that point, I would say just take a beat.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why I was kind of hesitant because I felt like this was new and I was like, I don't know if I can like fully commit, but like God literally was like, no, you have no choice but to commit because this is a thing that needs to happen. And so
Right.
once I put my money where my mouth was, it's like, oh no, like I
Yeah.
definitely have to be committed because you cannot just, like it's not something that you just want to lollygag, oh la la la, because
Right.
it's a process. Like
Mhm.
not only do you have to pay the money to get it done, but it's a process. Like you were telling me from the jump, like it could take anywhere between 6 to 10 months. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's a whole year of
Yeah.
waiting around for it to either get approved or you're having to make adjustments. And so you
Mhm.
need to make sure that this is definitely something that you're committed to. But also, I don't want that to be a thing that shies you away from doing it too, because it's like, on the other hand, like, think about if you are to be serious and take this thing, to the next
Yeah.
level. Sometimes people need that thing to push them to continue. Like, I can't give up because I've invested so much. And
Exactly.
so, and I'm sometimes that type of person, if I can be honest, like if I know like I've invested money in it, I'm gonna definitely give it my all. Whereas it's
Yeah.
like if I just don't sacrifice, if it doesn't cost of a sacrifice for me, then
Mhm.
it's not as, something that I hold as valuable. I
Yeah.
just think about when you really have an idea, if you really, really have an idea, if God really gave you something, one way to put your money where your mouth is to get it trademarked.
Right. I love that. That is the perfect way to put it. And look at you with the episodes. You're going really strong. I literally love this podcast. I
Thank
just want to say
you.
that while I'm here. But yeah, putting your money where your mouth is, and then you've invested. So if you
Yeah.
don't, then you're going to feel a bit silly.
Yes, yes, no. Big facts, big facts. What are some things that people should be aware of whenever they're deciding the business entity that they should pursue for the new business that they're wanting to create?
That's a great question. So it really depends on the situation, the number of people involved, what type of business it is. So definitely doing research or consulting an attorney as a first step, just so that you're starting the foundation right. But let's say you can run a business as a sole proprietor. So it's not registered with the state. You can get a DBA if you want a DBA, but that doesn't protect you from any liability. So if somebody comes for your business, let's say a nail tech, and they're just running as a solo, they haven't registered it, and somebody wants to sue them for something, they are going to get personally sued. There's no hidden like veil or anything. So with sole proprietorships, it's obviously the most affordable option because you're not paying to register it, but you may pay on the back end with legal fees or disputes if that ever happens. With LLCs, however, so limited liability company, that's a separate entity from you. So a business owner can be a member or an owner of an LLC, but they are protected. So let's say even having your business own certain assets instead of you owning the assets, then you personally are going to be protected from liability.
Mhm.
So with something like that, it's the most common type because it's easier to register and maintain. Then you have corporations. Corporations, I would say, typically are for maybe bigger organizations. They have a lot more filing requirements. You have a lot more annual requirements. So it can get a bit, it can get a bit sticky. Just it's quite a lot to manage and maintain in that. And in some states, they're more expensive to run as well. So for most startups, I would say just go with an LLC. And then at that point, if you grow or you want to venture into a corporation or a non-profit corporation, then you can do that. But starting out, an LLC will give you the protection you need. And then you also can get benefits like business funding through your EIN. And it's just a little bit more simple as an overall thing. There's also partnerships where partnerships are kind of overlooked, and you can actually end up in a partnership without realizing you're in one. So there's what's called a general partnership where, let's say, two people decide, okay, let's start this business. You'll do marketing, I'll do sales, and we'll split everything else between us. And they just start, making money, but there's nothing official on paper. They have formed a partnership, but they don't have that protection as well. So a general partnership, and I don't want to get into all the different terms and types, but that type of partnership is where you basically form a partnership. You don't want to say by accident, but it's how it's happened. It's an implied partnership and you won't have protection. So if you're going into business with somebody else, then maybe consider doing an LLC because it's still easier to maintain. And then, or you could do a limited partnership, limited liability partnership instead. So, but then it gets more complex. Some of them are reserved to certain businesses. So LLCs, honestly, are the most basic and most common. I think they're the most common for a reason because they allow new business owners to go straight in, register with the Secretary of State. As long as you're doing your annual filings and keeping up to date, then you shouldn't have any issues with that.
Y'all already know I'm all about working smarter and not harder, especially when it comes to marketing my brand. And if you're still relying on just social media to reach your audience, we need to have a little serious heart to heart. Social media is great, but let's be real. The algorithm is so unpredictable and your content is only reaching a small percentage of your followers, which is why I swear about email marketing. Because when I send an email, I know 100% of my subscribers are getting my messages. And the best part, Flowdesk makes this all easy. It's designed for entrepreneurs like us who don't have time to be fighting with complicated email platforms. You can send beautiful on-brand emails, automate your sequences, and even create landing pages without needing to be tech savvy. So if you've been putting off email marketing because it feels overwhelming, Flowdesk is the answer. And sis, you know I got you because you can try Flowdesk for free on me by using my link below. I added it below in the show notes. But seriously, don't sleep on this because your email list is your money-making list. So let's start by building your email list today with Flowdesk. I like that. That's really good. So a lot of people that I work with are typically personal brands. And so for myself, my LLC is my personal brand, Carly Dorlin LLC. And obviously that's not a common thing that I would say would need to be trademarked because, it's my name. But where do you feel like you draw the line on when someone should trademark their personal brand or their name? I don't have my personal brand trademark. I have my podcast trademark.
Right.
But for others, someone may be like, oh, well, I feel like I have to trademark my actual name. Where do you draw the line on when someone should trademark their personal brand and when they, could possibly get away with not having to do that?
Well, if they are, again, we can look at some trademarked names or people who have trademarked their names. A lot of people in the music industry, we have Beyonce, they had the Blue Ivy thing where it was registered to somebody else for a long time. Rihanna, I think Fred Hammond, I think he may have his name trademark. I need to double check. I was looking up names of people who have trademarked. It was a while back, but
Wow.
people trademark, and don't get me to lying, I'll check back with Fred Hammond. But if you have a presence and your business is linked to that personal brand, at that point, you should consider it. You have to weigh out the options as well in doing your research. One, how unique your name is, and it could be so unique that nobody else has it. But there are some, and there's somebody whose trademark I was working on, and theirs wasn't a name, but then it was refused because it was also known as a common name. They had no relation to the name. But if it's a common name that others may want to use, let's say Smith, and you want to register Smith, the trademark office is going to say, well, this is primarily a surname, so you can't have this registered, otherwise nobody else is ever going to be able to use it. But if you've built a presence and you have business linked to that, so let's say you have your personal brand, you're helping people with their creative strategies, and your name is linked to that brand, you can show the trademark office that, listen, this is my brand presence, these are the things I'm selling under my brand, and it is my brand, then you have a stronger chance of registration. But I've seen so many name registrations get rejected because there wasn't enough link to it to be an actual brand or source identifier of, okay, this person also is a brand. They're not just a person. Let's say Martha Stewart, for example, she has so many things behind her that she can say are linked to her name. If somebody else was to start selling products under her name, then she would be able to sue them, because now you're trying to take my brand identity. People are going to think your company is associated with mine, and it's her name, but it's also her business. So if that's your primary source and you're really building that personal brand to get clients, you can show that you are in commerce, you've got things that you're selling, then you have a stronger chance. But if not, I wouldn't say jump and do it immediately just because you don't want to risk getting rejected.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. What are most of the common legal mistakes that people make when they try to trademark their own entity or ideas themselves?
That's, my mind was going to so many different scenarios when you were saying that, because there's so many. And I personally, I like to tell clients who come to me for a consultation, I tell them, listen, you do have the option to file yourself. I always let them know. And some people would say it's a bad business strategy. But for me, I would just rather give you the knowledge and you can decide. And a lot of times people say, no, I'd rather you handle it. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's fine. But there have been many occasions where, even if I haven't told them, somebody might come to me, I see they're picking my brain, and they go and file themselves. I've had people come back once they filed 12 months later, and I'm like, oh, hello. Good to see you again. And I always welcome them with open arms. But it's just very interesting. And that's what really showed me that this is an area of expertise, because there are so many little mistakes that are easily avoidable that they don't know from the beginning. And so I would spot it, or let's say even with strategizing. You can do it yourself, but the I think the advantage that I have is I know how to strategize a trademark to prepare it in a way that it won't get rejected, based on what else is out there, based on my experience with other trademarks, based on things that may not be standard, but I've seen in my time.
Yeah.
But as somebody doing it DIY, you may not know what you're looking for. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And yes, the process itself can be simple, but I think it's more about just, I think this, you'll be probably sleep better at night knowing that it's being handled. And if there is a rejection, that there is someone to handle it. I've filed a number of responses on behalf of people who have filed themselves, and then they come back to me and I take over as the attorney. And thankfully, they've been approved. So it's still nice to see that these trademarks can get approved, because a lot of the mistakes can be minor mistakes. Some of them, sadly, I've seen ones where the mistake was just too much. It was almost identical to another trademark. It wasn't in the same class, but it was in a similar class. And some people don't realize that if you have a trademark in one class and somebody else's is in another, if they are closely associated, what they call coordinated classes, then yours can still get rejected.
Yeah.
And so with something like that, it's just, I think not knowing what you're looking for is probably the biggest thing when people are filing themselves. And some people do it and they do it successfully, and that's great as well. But then I personally, from my personal experience, I've had people coming back to me, and I really appreciate that they trust me enough and they feel comfortable enough to come back and say, hey, I know I came to you and then I did it myself, but I've messed it up. Can you fix it? I'm always happy to help, because I want to see people's brands registered. I want to see these trademarks go through. I would say if you are doing it yourself, just really do your research. You're either going to have to pay in time by doing your research, all the hours somebody else would spend to do it for you, or you'd pay in money. So either way, you're paying a cost. And just think about what the outcome you want is and what's available to you. And just yeah, if you're not going to pay an attorney, just spend that time instead and do your research and try and do the best you can, really, is what I'd say.
Yeah. And that was one thing that I really, really loved when we started working together, was that prior to me even like logging on to our call that we had scheduled, you had already had like all of these potential outliers that could be an issue. And you like brought them to the table like, hey, this is kind of similar, but not really. So here's how we're going to, combat this. This could be an issue, but this, there's another way to go around it. And I really love that because it just showed like how intentional and how serious you are about the work that you do and the research that you do. It's not like you're just going to somebody and you're just like an appointment on their schedule and they're just like, oh, who are you? What are you doing? Like, what is it? Okay, yeah, I'll take care of it. And going on, like, you literally dug in deep and found like all of these could be potential issues that may come up down the line, and you already had a strategy in place on how to tackle that issue if it were to come up. And I love that because it just made me feel like someone is taking me serious and taking my brand serious. And it just made me feel as if like you were very prepared. I felt like you was going in there like guns blazing, like we're gonna do anything we can to get this trademark approved. Okay?
Right.
It was just such a vibe. I'm like, I'm here for it. Like, just whatever you say. Like, let's just do it. It was
Right.
amazing. But
Oh, thank you.
also, it's good for people to also be aware, because I know that there was someone that had like a dash in their name, or they had a different spelling. And so those are different things that people should also be aware. If you are deciding to doing your trademark yourself, be aware of the different spellings and the different punctuation,
Yes.
because those could also be things that pushes your trademark application back, and then you're back in the beginning of the line and having to wait a whole nother 8 to 10 months before you
Right.
hear about your trademark again. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt really good about the content you're putting out? Are you tired of scrambling to post, feeling like you're never ahead, or just unsure on how to show up online consistently? Now, if you're nodding your head, I want you to listen up, because my content intensive package was made just for you. Here's the deal. In just one day, we'll create 1 to 2 months worth of high quality, impactful content that will have your brand showing up consistently and professionally. This isn't just some cute little photo shoot. No, ma'am. This is a full-blown, done-for-you content experience that includes everything you need to elevate your brand and connect with your audience. Oh, and did I mention this is an all-inclusive experience? Because yes, girl, we're getting it all done in one go. Whether you're launching something new, building a personal brand, or scaling your business, this package is everything you need to show up online without the stress. And I want to help you do it. So let's talk about it. Head over to cdcreativecoagency.com/contact to book your free discovery call. I want to learn everything about you, your brand, your goals, and how we can make this happen for you. You don't need to keep struggling to figure out what to post. Let's get your content done in one day so you can focus on growing your business. Now let's get back to the show.
With that, people might see a name and spell theirs differently. Taco Tuesday, when that was a whole thing and they got that trademark cancelled. Well, they actually basically relinquished the rights. They abandoned it themselves. But when they were doing that, I was looking at all these other Taco Tuesday trademarks, and somebody had tried to trademark Taco Tuesday but spelt it TAKOW, and then Tuesday was like TEWZ something. So if it's pronounced the same but spelt completely differently and it's in the same industry, you're still going to read that as Taco Tuesday. So that's another reason for them to reject it.
Yeah.
So if it gets rejected and you have to file a whole new trademark, then you're going to be behind, but you don't even know who's come in between you. And now they have to do a new search. And if somebody filed after you, but before you did your new filing, then they'll have priority over it.
Yeah.
So it's just all the things, and just being very intentional. And with the research, like I feel like when I go in, like that's like when I'm in like my focus mode. I don't care how many tabs I have. I get all the tabs out, that I go through them one by one and I start eliminating and narrowing. And I personally, I'm not looking for the problem, I'm looking for the solution. So I'll identify it just so I know, okay, I'll identify this as a problem so I can identify what solution will overcome this problem. And that's the way I like to go into it. So yeah, I think that's just, it's important.
I was like, "Oh, she's not playing. Like, she's serious." She's like, "So
uh,
this might be a problem, but I was like, "Okay, got it."
it's
It was
so
so
funny.
good. And that's one thing that I want people to be aware of. Yes, like I said at the beginning, it is an investment. But when you have somebody that is literally in your corner that can find the things, first of all, when you and I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, when you first start, you fall into this trap of like always trying to DIY everything. And don't get me wrong, some things you can DIY.
Mhm.
But I feel like when it comes to legal matters, when it comes to taxes, those are things that I would strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you not to try to do on your own. Because it's
Yeah.
like, on top of you trying to figure out how to do it, you're doing it, but then you're having to teach yourself how to do it. You don't want to have to learn how to do something while you're doing it, because
Right.
it's not going to be proficient. And
Mhm.
especially if it's something that important, as far as your business entity, you definitely want to make sure that you're secured and that you do all of the things, because like I said before, the process is so long. So it's like if
Yeah.
you have one little thing that you miss because you failed to, seek legal advice, then it
Mhm.
puts you back at the line and it's going to take you twice as long to get a result. Whereas you could have just put up that money, had somebody that actually does this do it for you, take
Yeah.
care of it for you, and then also speak on your behalf. So when you do face obstacles, you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to put out that fire. Please, please, please get you some help. Don't do it
Right.
yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I can't agree more.
So, what would you say are the first top 3 priorities when you're first deciding to start a business that you should take at the beginning?
I would say, even though it's not a legal step per se, it is, but it covers everything. So it's almost like a pre-step, is the research stage, 100% research stage. Start checking, is your name available in your state? Is your business viable? Do some market research, see other businesses, read, ask people, just do your research as much as you can. Don't obviously go all out on it, but going into it informed will help you feel more confident and secure in the success of your business. So, when it comes to the legal side of things, the things to research are things like, is the domain taken? Is it already a registered trademark? Is the LLC name available? All those things are things that you should check before you just go all guns blazing and start posting on social media and start, inviting people to your pop ups. I would say do that first. After that, once you've done your research and you're satisfied that, okay, this is something that is going to work, then I would say get that LLC, get your LLC sorted. And some people ask, trademark first or LLC first? Because I personally advise people to, and you could go either way depending on your circumstance, to have your business own the trademark. So if you, let's say you've done your research as your first stage, the second stage is you get the LLC and you've got, everything to do with that paperwork wise. So your EIN, you've got your operating agreement and the things that come with that. Then you can almost simultaneously, and I've done this with someone before, then you file the trademark once the LLC is active and have your LLC own it. So if you're in a position to do that, that's great. So the first step would be register the business and all domain names that you need to do, so securing it. Second would be to do the trademark and have that in motion. And then before you even start operating, I would say get your contracts in place. So if you are going to be dealing with different people, figure out who those people are, figure out what contracts you need, and have them in place before you accept money or give money to anyone. I think that's just very important. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen is when it comes to contracts, people not having that written contract in place.
Oh my gosh. No, I say this in hindsight because I
Right.
had my first contract, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this in Chat GPT and I'm gonna get Chat GPT to help me write my contract. And I mean, it was pretty basic contract, like nothing, whatever. But then like as you go through like encounters with people, you're like, I need to have something in my contract to protect me from this when this
Right.
happens. At the beginning of last year, I found a business attorney that sat down with me and went through all of my contracts. And to this day, that's one thing that I feel is the biggest weight lifter off of me is that I had an attorney. This is what I want in my contract. Like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And he drafted up everything to where my contract is probably 3 or 4 pages long, but
Yes.
it covers me in a multitude of issues. Okay.
Right.
I sleep well at night, knowing
Mhm.
I'm covered, my business is covered, and
Right.
pretty much anything that you can come up with is covered in that contract. But then
Mhm.
also, even when I work with entrepreneurs and they're reading my contract, they're like, how did you even come up with this? And I'm like, no, I literally worked with an attorney and got them to do my contract. I did not do any of this on my own.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's so good. And I'm glad that you hit that because I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. Your contracts are very, very, very important,
Mm.
extremely important, you know?
Yeah.
Although at the beginning, it wasn't bad for me to use a chat GP template to help me with my contract. But I mean, if you definitely have a little, change in the budget, I would
Mhm.
I would strongly suggest you, seek some help with your contracts just to make sure
Mhm.
that your business is protected. I mean, that's the whole point of
Yeah.
trademarks and LLCs is protection for yourself, but also for your business. And so with
Right.
that comes contracts as well. Always make
Mhm.
sure you're having a contract, whether you're working with a brand, whether you're working with a client, whomever, always
Right.
have a contract, whether it's your friend that you're doing business
Right.
with.
Mhm.
Always have a contract. If you're going to do like some type of gifted collaboration, even if it's no money exchange, always have
Mhm.
a contract because
Mhm.
there are so many circumstances where, oh, I'm just doing a favor for my friend and then things go left and it gets very messy quickly. I strongly, strongly say no matter what, always have a contract. Whether you're doing something for free, whether you're doing something to get paid, always have a contract that both parties sign, print, and are aware of.
Right. I love that. You said that so well. There was one point when you said it was extremely important. In my head, I was like, it's extremely we said
Yeah.
it at the same time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm really glad you've emphasized it. And from your point of view as an entrepreneur, it's different. I feel like hearing attorneys say it because of course we're going to say that,
Mhm.
but you saying it and in all the different scenarios, friends,
Yeah.
that's one people think, oh, I'm working with my friends, so I don't need a contract. That
Does
is
not matter.
not the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
I've
So,
gotten burned. And
mhm,
honestly, that's really how you find out these things is once you get burnt or, stuck a couple times. Before I had a person that I was working in business with, we didn't have a contract with one another, but we're working together to execute projects. But then there was a point where, a client had deliverables that needed to be, completed. And it was like, are you going to help me? Well, she wasn't obligated to because we didn't have a contract. So that left
right.
me figuring out how to do everything on my own. And so that's why I was like, it doesn't matter if you're friends or not. If they're your friend, they'll understand that you want them to sign a
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah, exactly. And that's on, even though it's off contract, it's still on contracts in a way. It's on for LLCs. If you're going into business, so let's say a business owner has got a friend and they decide to open a business together. So they've registered it with the state. So when you file it, it's one document, which is the Articles of Organization. Then you have the operating agreement. That doesn't go anywhere. You don't need to file it with the state. It's your internal document. And because not every state requires it, people overlook that too. But the operating agreement in an LLC will lay out how the business runs, who's responsible for what, what's expected of who, all of that, how everything's profit is shared, for example. So if you're in a business, an LLC with multiple members and as a group of friends and you have different responsibilities, make sure you're laying all of that out in the operating agreement signed by everyone. So literally a legally binding document. So
Mhm.
if anything goes wrong, you always have that to refer back to. And I see a lot of people don't have them because they feel like they don't need it.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
situations like you just mentioned, it's so important.
Yeah,
Mhm.
1,000%. And so that's something that you and your business partners will come together to create, all together and then all
Yeah.
sign. Basically, because the LLC application that you sign, that's completely different. That's just basically explaining the structure of your business. So if you
Right.
have two people, this person owes 50%, this person owns 50% or whatever, so you're
Mhm.
both 50% responsible. But you
Yeah.
still need something outside of that that
Yeah.
lays out everything,
Mhm.
or who's
Yeah,
responsible for what, in what situations this would happen, this is what's gonna happen. I
exactly.
see what you're
Yeah,
saying. Yeah,
yeah,
and honestly, I've never even thought about that. I've never,
yeah.
but I also don't have a business with, like, a business partner, but
Mhm.
it's also good to know if you are considering going into business with someone, that's another step that you would have to take to make sure that you're covered and that your business is still able to prosper should something happen down the line.
Exactly. And even if you're a solo owner, and it depends on the state, some states require that you have to have one. They're
Mhm,
not going around coming into your cabinets and checking, but you can still create one for yourself if you ever sell the company or if somebody eventually joins later down the line.
yeah.
They'll see this is how you operate. And if all the responsibilities were on you, well, now this is going towards you now. You're dealing with this, I'm dealing with this. In the event of this is how we're going to deal with it. It covers dispute resolution. So if we can't agree on something, I've seen some operating agreements where they decide if there's four people and it's they're not sure they're at a tie break, they'll flip a coin
Yeah.
and that's how they decide. Some people will go to mediation,
Oh, wow.
but if it's in the operating agreement and it's signed, that's how you deal with it. So it is very important for sure.
Wow. So I want to give someone a glimpse of what it's like to work with you. If someone that's listening is on the verge of, okay, after listening to this episode, I realized like I need a trademark. Walk us through the process of what they can expect if they decide to work with you on how they will be able to obtain their trademark.
Absolutely. So I start off with a discovery call. I just prefer to have the conversation with you face to face. Everything takes trust. I would like for the person coming to work with me to trust me and also to build that rapport. So
Yeah.
I always start off with the consultation call, and in that, we'll look at the viability. So there are some services where you pay for the trademark and then they tell you whether or not it's available.
Mhm.
I personally like to do the search up front, even just it's like let's say like with a medical check where you go in for a quick checkup. It's on the surface.
Mhm.
That's that. But if you need to go deeper, then that's what will come afterwards, where we're going to strategize like this is how we're going to get your trademark. And if you have to tweak some things, if you're opening to changing some things, then we can do that too. Sometimes you'll see a trademark is about to expire and say, well, actually, if we wait 2 weeks, this trademark will expire. And if they don't renew it, you can have it. So which is actually how I got my trademark. It was an expired trademark that I had this idea for so long. Somebody else had registered it. And I
Wow.
was like, I wanted this. And eventually it expired and I went straight in and now it's my trademark. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's that. We'll be look into all of that, see where you are to make sure you can get a successful registration. After that, then we go to the next stage and I go into a deeper dive, just looking at not just trademarks that are on the trademark database, but we also look at social media. Somebody has been using it for 10 years, but they've not registered it as a federal trademark. They could still have some common law rights if they've been doing 5 years or more with that name. So just looking out for anyone who may be a potential threat. I sometimes even check other countries depending on the name. So that stage for me, obviously at that point you're resting, you're peacefully just waiting for me to come back to you. But I really do a deep dive to make sure we're going in with a clear head and an informed decision. After that, then we just go through the process of putting your application together, gathering the specimen. The specimen is the evidence. So you can either file, and there's two ways. So you can file if you're already in business and you have the evidence and you've got everything ready to go, you can do it that way. Or you can say, I intend to use this name. So it's kind of like holding it
Mhm.
and then you would file your evidence later. I like to try and establish where people are. If somebody is literally days away from launching or they have the website, they just haven't clicked that publish,
Mhm.
I would recommend, okay, let's publish the website and get it in because it's you can save money from doing it with the evidence. But if you're really strong on the idea, you have, you're still working with people to build it together and you just want to put that application in so you have the priority, then I would say, okay, well, let's file it without the evidence. And when you're ready, we'll be able to put it together and show them how you're using it. So just like to see where people are and figure out what works best for them and how to make sure they're protected if they're going forward with the business. And then And then it's a waiting game, honestly. And I just feel so bad sometimes. When I first started, I was like, oh my goodness, like there's no update for
Yeah.
the first like 7, 8 months. It just says new application awaiting assignment to an examining attorney. And I used to refresh that button so much. But now I understand the time frame. And they are working to make things more efficient and quicker. So when I first started, it was taking a full year. From 1 year to the next to get registration. But now I've seen some being registered in the same year, even if it's like 6 months in or 7 months in. So they are working through that process. And then at the end, you get your trademark certificate, which is one of my favorite parts. I print them myself. I sign it personally, and yeah, it's just a great experience. And you can hang it up, and yeah, just enjoy your trademark.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for mine to get approved, but I know I will.
Yeah,
I can't wait
and it will.
to get mine and put it on the wall and get excited.
I can't wait either, honestly.
No, that was so good. I really wanted you to share that because I know that there are some people that are probably on the fence, like, okay, I know I probably should do this, but I want to just get some insight on what that experience looks like. And so, I mean, of
Mm.
course, I'm a little bit biased, but of course, I'm going to lace you up with the best of the best. So if you are looking for someone to do your trademark, my girl Elle got you, and you will be in safe, safe, safe hands for sure. So, where can our listeners follow you and connect with you or reach out to you if they have any questions? Where can they find you?
And they can find me I'm on all social media as at El-Elyon ESQ, El-Elyon-esque, but ELELYONESQ on Instagram, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And then my website is just my name as well, El-Elyon-ESQ.com. And I'm very responsive. I mean, I haven't been on social media as much as I should be, and I'm going to get with Carly for that to get myself situated. But yeah, that's where you can find me, and I'll always respond as soon as I see the message. So
Yes, I love that. And then you also have a freebie for all of our listeners too that I kind of want to talk about. So let us know about your freebie as well.
yeah, so the freebie is a legal guide which you can use as a checklist, and it's basically about starting right from the foundation. So it's great for anyone who's like, okay, we've heard everything we've talked about today, but now you're thinking, okay, how, I don't know if you're taking notes, but the guide is very useful so you know what you're looking for. It's a short guide, it's about 20 pages, but I say short, it has details, and it was actually really hard for me to keep it that short because with everything there's so much more. So it's a basic guide that will give you the information you need, so if you are going out and doing something by yourself, then at least you know where to start researching, what to look for, and you can tick off that you're doing certain things. It covers hiring independent contractors when you're doing your copyright, because that's also another important part of business. Just little nuances that people sometimes overlook. It's a good guide just to have and go back to, and it's not just for new business owners. You can almost use it to go back and check if you are already in business to see, okay, have I done this? Oh, I didn't think about that. So yeah, you can grab that at elelyonesque.com/legal guide, and then you can just get it from there.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Elle, for joining us today on the podcast.
It was so fun. I'm so glad I'm here. I can't believe I'm here, actually. I'm almost kind of like fangirling secretly. Because I listened to it. There was one episode I listened to twice, and I was at the cafe and I was like taking notes. I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm just so honored to actually be here. So it'll be weird listening back to it because I'm always going to listen to the episode. I'm like, oh, that's my voice.
I'm literally the same way. I'm like, oh, my voice is so cringy. No, this was great. I'm super excited. I know that everyone is going to find all of this information so valuable because a lot of people are in different places. They're either considering starting a business or they already have started a business, but they haven't taken that legal step yet to either establish their LLC or even their trademark. And so I think that this will be good to have someone on here who does this. And then also just being someone as a resource that you can use later on down the line if you need some help. Like, oh, I need some help with my contracts. I need some help, help me out, girl. You know where to find her. She has all of the information. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been so fun. Honestly, I'm so honored to have been here. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Side Hustler Podcast. I hope you're leaving here today feeling inspired and ready to take your next step. If you love this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another side hustler who needs to hear it. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Carly Dorlin. I'd love to hear about your side hustling journey. Remember, you're doing better than you think, and your dreams are so worth it. Until next time, keep hustling, sis. You got this.